What's up, nerds? Zach the Gooner Goblin here. I would like to start off by saying thank you so much for 400 subs. It sincerely means a lot to me. Now be a real one and help me get to 500 by spanking that subscribe button. After that, join the Discord to find out how you can get a chance to win a $50 Steam gift card or equivalent at the end of every month. As of the writing of this video, Space Marine 2 is coming out in about 2 weeks and I am super excited for it. In preparation, I thought I would play through and cover the Space Marine 1 Anniversary Edition. Without further ado, let's get at it. Space Marine was released in September 2011 by Relic Entertainment, a Canadian developer who has made some popular games such as Homeworld 1 and 2, Age of Empires 4, and the Warhammer 40k Dawn of War games. Now, before I go over the story and gameplay, I want to have an unhinged yap sesh about some orcs. I will keep this as brief as I am physically able to. The orcs are the best boys of 40k. They are dumb and love to fight. They are the himbos of the grimdark universe, if you will. Now you might be saying, Zach, come on now. I know what orcs are. They're only one of the most basic enemy types in any fantasy setting, so I think I know what to expect. Well, to that I'd say, wrong. And oh boy, am I rock hard ready to explain some of the reasons why. First, orcs are actually closer to mushrooms than they are to humans. They reproduce via spores that grow into pods, which birth the various green skin types. Orcs may seem like dumb, sentient fungi, but the power of their minds is stronger than you can even imagine. Unbeknownst to even themselves, they are actually powerful collective psychers. It is believed that they have a sort of collaborative collective psychic ability, meaning that if enough orcs believe something is true, then it will actually become so. Brought into real space through the power of the Immaterium by their Gestalt psychic ability. Here are some of my favorite examples of how this can manifest. The most famous one is that the color red makes things go faster. So since they collectively believe it, if they paint a vehicle red, it will actually in fact go faster. Much like the flame decals on my car. Another story I once heard, and I don't remember where I heard this from, but you have a bunch of orc boys in some kind of vehicle, right? And they're going, and then one of them notices, oh shit, we're almost out of gas. And so he tells the big boss orc, and the big boss orc's like, nuh-uh, I filled it up before he left. I know I did. And because he's the big boss orc, all the other orcs are like, well, fuck, I guess he did. He wouldn't lie. He knows what's going on. He's big. He's bigger than us, so obviously he's right. So because they all believe they have enough gas, they just don't run out of gas, even though they don't have any gas. But because they believe it, they collectively believe it. It manifests. You have Mechanicus tech priests saying that their technology shouldn't work, but because they collectively believe it does work, it does. Now, a quick caveat before people yell at me in the comments. There are some alternative theories on how this actually works. Let's take the red paint example for instance. It could be that they just subconsciously paint all of their fast stuff red, not that the red paint actually makes it faster. Basically, without getting in the weeds regarding the original creation of the orcs, they have the knowledge of their technologies imprinted into their DNA, and neither them nor any humans can actually explain how they work. So we attribute a manifesting belief power to the orcs. Now, with that being said, I for one subscribe to the former explanation simply because it's more fun and I'm based. Okay, I'm going to talk about the story now. I would say spoiler warning, but to be honest, there isn't really much to spoil. Yeah. That's all the backstory you get. So if you want to learn anything about the setting and lore of Warhammer 40k, well, keep looking, because you won't really find it here. That being said, the opening level is super cool. This game actually has a lot of really cool set piece moments. So you start off by deploying, surrounded by enemies, and just slaughtering all of them. It really does set the tone for playing as a Space Marine, which for the remainder of this video, I will be referring to them as Astartes. You play as Captain Titus, a gruff Ultramarine. You will also be joined by an older gruff Ultramarine named Sidonis, and a third gruff Ultramarine named Leandros. Do you sense a pattern here? But that last person has a secondary personality trait, and that is being a by-the-books nerd.
Is that wise, Captain? The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
We can't just deploy with jetpacks. That's fucking scary and I'm a pussy. You are part of the Ultramarines, who are kind of the white bread of Astartes. They are the jack of all trades, good at everything while not really specializing in any one area. But if you're into Warhammer media, you're gonna see a lot of them since Game Workshop really pushes them hard. Because of that, they just don't really pique my interest as much as other Astartes chapters like the Dark Angel successor chapters or the Black Templars do. This is really exemplified in the character development of this game's Ultramarines. There isn't really any. Dialogue between characters almost entirely consists of talking about the mission and what they are doing in that moment. I was so starved for character moments that when Chaos shows up about halfway through, I popped off when Grimskull tried to scrap with Chaos. Along the way, you will meet a few other characters, such as a girl boss Imperial Guard Lieutenant, a totally not evil Inquisitor, a based Orc war boss, and this ugly bastard. For about half the game, you are focused on fighting through orcs, trying to rid the Forge world of the green-skinned threat. You meet an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos named Drogon, who says he has a device that can eradicate them. Once you get to his weapon, you use it to surprise, the totally not evil Inquisitor was actually an agent of Chaos, and you done fucked up and opened the gates to let them all in. You know, I always thought, why would anybody want to join Chaos? Like, it just makes you ugly. And what's worse than being ugly? But then I looked up some pictures, and you know, maybe it wouldn't be that bad, is all I'm gonna say. So, for the second half of the game, you're fighting the forces of Chaos. But if you thought, oh no, I'm gonna have to adapt to a new playstyle, well, don't worry. You won't. You still just fire bullets at them until they die. No tactics change necessary. So with the new goal to stop Chaos, you are off. This follows the pattern of you doing some shit and being close to Chaos, and none of it affecting or corrupting Chad Titus, with Leandros following behind the whole time, whining like a bitch about the Codex and that you are going to be corrupted or some shit, even though Titus is obviously mogging Chaos. You also finally get to fight Grimskull, and while the boss fights in this game kinda suck, that Orc Wog did hit though. At the end, you finally get to fight the newly demonized Nemeroth in the ultimate culmination of the game, a QuickTime event. That's right, the final boss fight of this game is a glorified QuickTime event, but I actually like that for two reasons. One, it was cool. And two, I think the developers realized that the mechanics didn't really lend itself to having good boss fights, so they just went, fuck it, QuickTime event. And I prefer this because I'm sure that the boss fight would have been probably poo-poo garbage, and at least this was like a fun spectacle, so I'm here for it. So with all of that over, everyone lives happily ever after. Well, that would be the case if bitch-ass Leandros didn't rat you out to another Inquisitor named Thrax, telling him that you have been corrupted by Chaos. And that is where the game ends, with Titus in the custody of the Inquisition. If there is one thing that I really hope for in Space Marine 2 is that we can give Leandros a nice backhand for being such a pussy.
Codex Astartes leaves no room for doubt. You cannot touch the warp and emerge unscathed.
The Codex Astartes is a set of rules. They guide us, shape us as Ultramarines, teach us to hold duty and honor sacred above all. But how we live with those rules is the true test of a Space Marine. And you have failed.
Got him. This game harkens back to a bygone era of gaming. There aren't a lot of frills to be had. What you see is what you get. You go through linear levels, shooting things until they're dead, and picking up weapon upgrades and hidden servo skulls for lore. But with that being said, there is something charming about it, and I actually quite enjoyed it. But regardless, what you're really here for is the power fantasy of being an Astartes, and boy does it deliver. This game does a really good job of imparting a certain weight and size to your movements. When you dodge, you actually stun many smaller enemies, or my favorite thing to do, you can just truck through them, exploding them in blood and viscera. The guns all feel good, especially the most important one, the bolter. And in my not so humble opinion, it nails the sound. A nice little touch is that when you're firing a weapon, when you get close to the end of a clip, the sound of the gun changes to signify it. This does a good job of keeping your eyes trained on the action instead of the ammo counter. Like many action games of the time, you have a health bar with regenerating shields. As that suggests, the shields regenerate over time, but the only way you can regen health, besides popping your special meter, is by performing melee executions. Now, I'm not saying that Doom 2016 was inspired by this game, but the Doom guy has always been Astartes coded, so it fits honestly. The aforementioned special meter is basically just a rage mode you can build up over time, a la God of War or similar systems. One cool thing though is that after you level it up, it allows you to slow down time while aiming. Oh, also, you can just use a jetpack. I did encounter a couple of bugs during my playthrough. Some of them were inconsequential visual bugs, while others were a little bit more game-breaking. The only big one was every now and then the screen would just go black. I never figured out why this happened, and no settings I changed seemed to fix it. The only thing I could do was just restart the game. Luckily, the checkpoint system in Space Marine is pretty generous, or else this would have been really bad. Another thing this game does really well is presentation. This game nails the scale of Warhammer 40k. Everything is huge. It really sells the fact that you are in a manufactorum on a giant planet-sized factory. One thing I noticed while playing is that at one point you're fighting under this big fucking crane, and it actually casts like a shadow in real time as it moved. I don't know if this is new in the Anniversary Edition, but it was a really nice touch that honestly they didn't need to do. And something I touched on earlier, you really feel like a fucking unit, especially when compared to the normal soldiers. Every step you take is weighty and girthy, like a Slaneshi's demon's gawk. There is one thing I really didn't like though. Why did everyone pronounce Lieutenant that way?
This is Lieutenant Mira aboard Valkyrie 1.
Who is this game for? Short kings who want to finally tower over others? ROTC kids who take it way too seriously? And twinks who want to watch their bears blow their payload all over some bulky green men? I would recommend this game if you are excited for Space Marine 2, or if you just want to play a game in a style that they don't really make anymore. My score for this game is a girthy orc out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, see you next time, and remember to like and subscribe or the heretics win.